right, it's 7:05 on the 22nd of January, and we're going to call the Stayton City Council meeting to order. Would you please join me in the flag salute? Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you for that. And we're starting a little late tonight because we had a work session about urban renewal next door. So that lasted for the last hour, and I appreciate everyone that showed up to talk about that and explore options. So with that, is there any announcements to the agenda or additions to the agenda?
Yes, Mayor, we do have an addition to the agenda. Sorry it didn't make it into your packet. It's
Okay.
Appointment of council president.
Okay.
And we recommend that either go first under general business or last under general business at your discretion.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to move it to first under general
Okay.
business. Is there any declaration of ex-party contacts, conflict of interest, bias, etc.? No? Hear none? That leaves us to public comment, and I think we have some folks signed up for public comment. Did anyone else wanted to testify before the two that we have here? Anybody else? No? We're good. So before we call them up here, I'm going to read this public comment opening statement. The council will now receive public comment. We value the time and initiative members of the public take to share their thoughts with the council. The council's role during public comment is not to immediately respond, but to listen. If there's a follow-up necessary, we will direct city staff to do so. Remember that we are all model the way for our community, and we ask that everyone share their thoughts respectfully. Those who have completed a request for recognition form will be called one at a time to step forward and to turn on the speaker, which is the green button on there, and state their name and address, and then please note that speakers will have 3 minutes to express their thoughts. Okay? So, with that, we'll start with Jonathan Penrith. Jonathan, come on up.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Awesome. Good evening, everybody. My name is Jonathan Penrice. My address is 456 North First Avenue. And I'd like to talk today about traffic safety. So as I think a lot of people know, I go walking a lot around town. And I've noticed that there is a bit of a pedestrian safety issue at the intersection of First and Washington Street at the light. In the past few weeks, I've nearly been hit about 3 or 4 times there because people are not paying attention when I have the signal. I was also talking to some other people, and they say that they've also heard of some people who are actually hit at that intersection. And I know that we have a bunch of new apartments coming in. That's going to be more people, more traffic. So I would like to see the city or the police department do something to help promote pedestrian safety, maybe a sting there, or something just to help make sure that our residents and the drivers are being careful and looking out for those pedestrians so everybody can stay safe. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. All right. Stephen Barrow.
Mr. Burrell, I don't think you have your microphone on. Can you push the button?
Yeah, it should.
On the base.
There you go. Should be green.
All right.
You're on.
So say it again or what?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. Steve Barrel, 2038 East Cedar, Stayton, Oregon. And I'm concerned about the traffic in Stayton because when you go to Safeway, the traffic we have right now is bad enough. So what's going to be like later when all these departments are, you know, if everyone has a car, 2 cars, we already got too much traffic. And then they predict down the road we're going to have less snow, so we're going to have less water. So where are we get the water from? And then the schools, what about the schools? And you have more crime, and so that's all.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Is there anybody else that didn't submit a form that'd like to? No? Okay. With that, we'll move on to consent agenda. What would the council like to do for the consent agenda from December 18th? I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. The consent agenda includes the December 18th City Council work session minutes, the December 18th City Council regular session minutes, Resolution number 1086 authorizing stormwater master plan update, and Resolution number 1088 appointing Denise Bush and Leonard Hayes to the Budget Committee. Council?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor Sims?
the stormwater master plan update, can we make that a separate item? I have some questions about that. I'd like to
I do as
discuss
well.
that.
Yep. So you want to move that one to a separate item?
Yes.
So remove item C from the consent agenda. Can we do that?
Yep, so that will be taken off of the consent agenda,
Yep.
and we'll add that to the end of the general business.
Sounds good. Anybody else?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I feel like
Councilor
we keep kind of going back and forth with our appointments on whether they're in the consent agenda or if they're a separate item. Is that?
My recollection was we moved them to consent agenda, right, from being a separate item.
Yeah, it was a separate item, but we decided to put them under consent just because they're generally fairly simple and easy. And if you wish to, but if you want to talk to them or if
Yeah.
you want to say anything, I know the mayor was more concerned about having an opportunity to thank them. After, you can still do that after you've adopted the consent agenda.
I'm fine with leaving them.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor
Councilor
Patty.
Patty, with that removal of item C from the consent agenda, I motion that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved in second to approve the consent agenda as submitted minus item C. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion carries 5-0. And yes, thank you to the Budget Committee, new Budget Committee members. I appreciate you guys stepping forward and doing that. It's been awesome. So look forward to seeing you in May, if not sooner.
Yep.
Yeah,
Thank you both.
That leaves us with, yes. What happened? Oh, did I miss something? Dinner, well, okay, we can figure that into the budget.
Just Steve.
Just Steve. With that leaves us with presentations, and our presentations tonight will be, Julia, you want to share?
Sure, we've got Benny Perez, correct? Student body president at Stayton High School, coming to speak to you and share who he is. I know he's the student representative to the school board, and it was suggested to me that we wanted to have them come and share. I will say, it was I was informed, and we need to give him a huge thanks. It's finals week, and he took his time out of finals week and studying to come here this evening. So he's going to leave as soon as he's done presenting, and don't take it personally.
Come on out then. Thank you for making the time, by the way.
Yeah, thank you. This is on, right? Just give me a second to pull up some notes.
And my understanding too is that he did have a presentation that he was hoping to present on the screen, but our technology didn't communicate. So if he wants to email me this presentation, we'll send it to you guys as well.
Yeah, I can do that. Okay, so first off, I just want to say thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here. So as she introduced, my name is Benjamin Perez. I'm a senior at Stayton High School. I've gone to Stayton High School all 4 years. I'm also the ASB student body president. I love the environment, the school spirit, everything that goes on within the school. Most importantly, I love the students there. The staff is amazing. Our admin team is amazing. I have Mr. Loving here with me. He's an amazing guy, and I was surprised. I've been to many leadership events, and I was surprised that many students at other school districts don't even know their superintendent. So Mr. Loving, it makes it a big factor to him to be involved in all the schools, and so I really appreciate that. So just some things that I want to come here and present for you guys is really just want to go through what's going on inside of the school, what's going on inside of the high school. So some events that we have coming up that ASB, our student council, is planning. So they're student planned events, student funded and all that. So right around the corner, February 3rd, we have our winter formal dance. So this is something that we picked up last year, right around COVID ending. It happened pre-COVID, and then obviously COVID messed up a lot of things, and so we wanted to bring it back. And last year being the first year in a while, we got pretty good attendance and pretty good feedback, and so we're bringing it back this year as well. That works as a great fundraiser for our student council, and it also just serves as a really fun event for the students. We are placing it at the beginning of the new semester. It is finals week, so at the beginning of the new semester, that means that all students will have passing grades, which for us means that we will not require grade checks as we typically do for those events. So that means that we are hoping to get a lot more attendance, even more than last year. Generally, we have around 700 to 800 students in our school. We'd like to get at least 50% of those students to go to those events, and normally we do hit that mark every year. Something else going on is February 7th, we have our first time ever, a co-ed basketball tournament. So this is a class versus class competition. One of the things that I love so much about Stayton High School is the competitiveness between the classes. The freshmen aren't scared of seniors, and seniors definitely are not scared of freshmen. And so we want to make more events that kind of encompass that. And so we are having a basketball tournament. The winning class gets what we call spirit points. And so spirit points are an incentive. At the end of the year, the class with the most spirit points gets a free taco truck for lunch. They also get a couple more things throughout the year. So it's just a really great way to boost school spirit and to get students that typically are not involved to be involved. So we had a lot of good feedback about that event. One other thing coming up as well, this is more of a community-wide thing. So for those of you that may not know, Stayton High School, for the past 2 years, we have partnered with the Make-A-Wish Foundation. So last year we had a kid named Colton who we sponsored throughout the year, and this year we have a girl. She's 5 years old. She was diagnosed with leukemia. Her name is Victoria. So throughout the year we have been sponsoring her family. Our goal is to raise $7,000, and I believe we are around the $2,000 mark, which is right on track for where we wanted to be at this point in the year. So one of the creative ways that we came up with further sponsoring the family is a competition called the Eagle Cup. So the Eagle Cup is essentially a series of competitions that upperclassmen will sign up to participate in. And these donations will be based on people that show up to watch the upperclassmen. So for example, we plan on having a dodgeball tournament, and family members, friends that show up to watch those upperclassmen will donate $1. We have another event working. We have worked with Cascade on a volleyball game versus Cascade, and so those same upperclassmen will participate in the volleyball game, and people can pay $1 to sub someone in and sub someone out. And so it's really just a way to kind of incorporate our students, obviously our neighbor school, and family, friends, and members of the community. That's one thing that I really want to do as the student body president this year, is to incorporate as many people as I can. Just some other things that I want to update you guys on is, so throughout this whole year, I really took this year upon myself to kind of rebuild our leadership program, being that it kind of got derailed due to the COVID, obviously. And so a couple ways that we're doing that is we want to redevelop our news outreach and our media outreach. So I think it's super important that it's our responsibility to market our own school to our own students. And so we're doing our best. We're spending money where we need to spend money on the correct recording equipment, microphones, all of this, and we're trying to create a platform that our students can come and watch and be educated on what's going on within the school and what's going on within the community. And so we're being very diligent with what we're doing in that aspect. And that is all I have for you guys today. I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Awesome. Benjamin, thanks for doing that. And
Yep.
I'm gonna ask David Patty to talk about that as the rep for the school board on the council.
I just want to say thank you so much for being here, especially on finals week. Good luck, by the way, on that.
Yeah.
And I've really appreciated your updates, just seeing them at school board and see you present information and see that kind of engagement from you and your colleague there, too. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And so I'm really glad to see you here, and I hope that you can provide us regular updates and come back when you feel it's appropriate.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yes.
Appreciate it.
very much. Anybody else? Benjamin, thanks. That was awesome.
Yep.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
All right. There is no public hearing scheduled, so we will go to general business. And the first line of general business for tonight is going to be, per the council rules, is the appointment of a council president every year in January. And so this is the meeting we're going to get that done. So with that, I'm going to entertain appointments from the council.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Patty.
I just want to go ahead and say first off, thank you to all of you for bestowing your faith upon me for the last year of doing this position. I've really enjoyed it. Over the last couple of months, I've kind of been reflecting on it and who would be most effective in this role. And I've been thinking about who is most available. And I don't mean that in a way of anything against retirees. But I just keep thinking about who is the best person or most available to sit at a table and advocate for Stayton and get good outcomes. And I've really enjoyed seeing Councilor Sims as he's kind of gone along here since his appointment. And I think that he would be really well suited for this role. And I've thought about it a lot for the last couple of weeks. I'm hoping that, I know Councilor Ort, she's served in this capacity before, and I'm hoping that I can be an asset to you if we were to nominate you tonight. And so that's what I would like to do. Mr. Mayor, I move that Councilor Sims is appointed Council President for 2024.
I would like to second that.
Trying to get out of it? It's been moved and seconded to appoint Councilor Sims as Council President. Is there any further discussion? Okay.
So, Mayor, I don't know if he's formally accepted that nomination. I just want to just make sure that is on the record that he has accepted the nomination.
I'll phrase it this way. Councilor Sims, you're not opposed to it, are you?
I am not opposed to it.
Councilor Ort, you have something to say?
I was just going to say that I agree with Councilor Patty's sentiment, and I think it can be what you make of it, and I think that you already do a really good job outwardly facing the community, and so I think you'd be a really good role for this, or good for this role, excuse me.
So it seemed that you accepted it, and seeing that there's been a motion and a second, is there no further discussion? All those in favor of having Councilor Sims be the new Councilor President for this year, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Sims, for stepping up and doing that. Thanks for the nomination for the rest of the council. Okay. Next item of general business is discussion of ARPA fund request from the county. Julia?
Yes, thank you. And I did email you on Friday a short memo. I've got a copy of it if you need a copy. So just a short reminder, I'm summarizing what's in the memo, but the county allocated some funds to the city, ARPA funds to the city, primarily for the purpose of Wilderness Park. But as you know from prior conversations about ARPA funds, they have to be allocated by basically the end of this year and spent by December 2026. And we have a lot of other things that we're talking with the Water Control District about that are, in my mind, far more pressing than opening Wilderness Park up. And I wasn't sure how quickly and easily we would be able to get through negotiations of whether or not we even could reach an agreement. And so we were concerned that we might lose out on the funds if we didn't identify how we would spend that. In conversations with the county, the county administrative officer, she said, and she had talked with the county commissioners at a work session, I believe, that really they want us to use it for what we believe that we would be able to utilize it for best. Because it was originally intended for park and kind of livability purposes, staff kind of looked at ideas of projects within that vein. And so what was presented to you was a variety of things that we thought about But what we recommend is under the staff recommendation is actually 2 projects. And I've got Jana here and Lance here if there's questions about specific projects, or the 3 of us can kind of chime in on some of those. The first one is improvements to what I'm referring to as Riverfront Park South. This is the area south of the water treatment plant and serves as a secondary access to Riverfront Park. The plan would be to improve the access, to improve the existing parking area by regrading, regraveling, and paving the lot. That wasn't included in what I had written, but Lance confirmed that it would be paving the lot. Installing fencing to limit overnight parking and access, and removing vegetation, including trees, to allow better visual access to the river, and installing a kayak launch. It would likely include park signage as well. We have an estimate from Lance of about $206,000. We believe that is scalable. That is something that he's kind of been talking with the Parks Board about already, and if we used more funds for the other project, or last, if things didn't work out perfectly dollar for dollar, that would be okay as long as we spend the $250,000 that have been allocated to us. So that's project 1. And the other project that is exciting to me is we're calling Improvements to Community Center Park, which is behind the library. This would involve adding a 200 amp panel and installing 2 lockable power pedestals in the park to extend electricity and allow for better utilization of the park for year-round events. This would also allow for the purchase of lights for a holiday light walk-through display, encouraging walking and tourism. We have a rough cost estimate of about $50,000, a little over $50,000 for the electrical work. And lights. So the electrical work was about $45,000, and we believe lights would be about $5,000. And then we estimate that there's going to be about $1,500 in annual costs because of the electricity, and that's based on costs from a neighboring city that does some light displays as well, and then increasing it a little bit. The vision with that, and I'm excited about that on a lot of levels, but the library this year did a really neat light display outside and inside, but they were limited in they can only do it for a few hours because they didn't have the electricity available to light the park for a long period of time. This would allow us to do it for weeks. And it would also, my vision is that we could have this light display and then encourage people to walk from this light display into downtown, see the lights along 3rd Street, and really make it a neat community walk and attraction for both our community as well as potentially others. So those are the 2 projects that we recommend that we move forward, sort of proposing to the county that that's how we spend the money. But I did at the bottom include some other projects that we did discuss, but we're not recommending. I'm happy to talk more about those, but I'd like to focus on the ones that we're recommending. Any questions for me, Lance, Jana?
Councilor Sims.
A question on the community center park. Is that something that could be utilized for like a summer concert series?
I believe so. Yes. Jana is nodding in the back. Yes.
She's nodding back there. Because that would bring in a lot of people to the area.
Lance and
having a
Jana,
concert
why don't you
series.
both come on up, just in case they have questions for you two.
Yeah, I think it would be something that would be able to be. There's no power on in the park except there's 2 exterior plugs on the library that require a special cord, right? So when we lit the library, and then we opened the door and popped the door and lit the park to the sound of Into the Unknown from Frozen. But when we left, like, we got to pull the lights down and unplug them because they're just plugged into exterior plugs on the building. So there's no reason we couldn't use it for, like, when the library hosts performers in the summer, we often run a cord, like the length to the performer, so that they can have equipment out there. All of those things would be able to be used for that.
But we don't have any sort of stand there in the.
No.
Like I know we used to have one at Pioneer Park when I was a kid. That's
There's
long
no
gone.
stand. We borrowed the school district's like.
It's like an amphitheater.
Yeah.
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 Because that would bring in so many people to the downtown area, the restaurants and bars, and It'd be hopping.
We also use the park a lot and use the greenery in the park a lot. So like, I don't want to do too much with the like concrete-ness of that, because the library in particular uses the park very heavily for green space.
Thanks, yeah, that helps.
Thanks, Steve.
Lance, I have one question
Sir.
about Riverfront Park.
Yeah.
Is there any input needed from the tri-agreement or the parties involved in the Riverfront Park agreement?
No, that's that conservation agreement easement. It doesn't have anything to do with where we're
Okay.
going to be doing this.
Right.
It's if you know the park, the conservation easement basically stops at the wells, and everything west of the wells is not part of that. So basically, we can do pretty much anything we want. We have to watch out for wetlands, things like that when we do it, but we already plan to do that.
Okay. Councilor Sims?
So I had a question about, I saw on here that Mill Creek Park is not on the list. Is that because you have to do a master plan update, or?
We are in the midst of doing the master plan update right now. We should probably have it back, a draft of it by this Friday, as a matter of fact. But we're going in for an OPRD grant, and we're working on that. That'll be going on April 1st. I think the last time we spoke, I think you were adamant about spending money on Mill Creek Park this next year.
That is correct, yeah.
And so we just assumed as a staff we'd be spending some money there out of our SDC pot on that park. What that amount is, we don't know yet. I mean, those are discussions we're going to have with the council and the budget committee. But we already assume that we're going to be spending some money down there anyway, and those can come directly from SDCs, where that park would not be allowed to use SDC funds. So we've got to, use the pots of money that are available to us for the projects that we have. That one happens to really line up well with the ARPA funds.
Okay.
Right, and the Mill Creek Park, we're not confident that we could authorize the spending of the funds within the ARPA timeline, and there are other pots of money that we could potentially tap into, that we will tap into.
Is there any idea what phase one's going to cost for Mill Creek? I mean,
No.
I know there's about 1.1 million in the SDC fund, somewhere in there.
So
around that.
again, we are going to be going before the OPRD fund, or the OPRD grant. The grant is upwards of $1.2 million, and at this time, there is no match. So before we had to match 40%, and this time there is no match. So if we're fortunate enough to get a grant, then whatever we get goes 100% to that park without a match. And so what I can tell you is the first time we put that master plan together, it was about a $5 million project. Phase one was $1.25 million. And so I can't imagine it's going to be much less than that, if it's going to be less. But once we get the master plan updated, we've done some things. We've kept the teen center in, so that wasn't there before. So that'll be there. We've got the ASR going on out there as well. So we've got to show that, and we've got some other mitigation along Mill Creek that we're doing for another project. So we're just trying to update that, and once we have that updated, we're going to be breaking that out to something that's very close to what we'll probably go for the max amount, the 1.1 or 1.2 million. So that's about what the grant will be for, and then if we get that, if we're fortunate, whatever we get, we'll add that to the SDCs, and we'll just do as much as we can on this phase.
Councilor Orr?
I don't know who this question is to, but could we get some more information on the new rulings on the recreational immunity that's raising questions for Wilderness Park?
Yes. Yes. When this first came out, I did send a request for information to our city attorney, and I got some preliminary analysis that I thought I forwarded to you, but maybe I didn't. and I think it's just, the issue is that it's uncertain right now on whether or not somebody walking on a trail for purposes other than recreation are, whether or not we're covered from recreational immunity for that, and that was the issue. There's still a lot of things going through the courts and case law and things like that on what that means.
What would someone be doing other than a recreational walking?
Getting from point A to point B.
Okay.
That,
They can cut
That
through
doesn't-
Mill Creek Park to those trails behind the
But
middle
that
school.
doesn't count as recreational use to be using a trail. I'm
Apparently
guessing
not.
That's the way it was determined. That's the whole question.
yeah, so the case that brought this to light was, if I'm getting my facts generally straight, was in Newport. Somebody was utilizing a trail from a parking lot to the beach, walking their dog, and they slipped and fell, and apparently very bad, maybe like over a slippery bridge or something like that, and sued. The city claimed recreational immunity, and she said, but I wasn't recreating, I was walking my dog. I was using this to get to a place to do something, and the courts upheld that argument. And so cities are scrambling, and I'm sure legislators will be, there will probably be fixes to address this, because it is potentially a big issue. I think it's less of, our city attorney doesn't seem quite as concerned as CIS is, I'll just say that.
One of the things I recall in that, Julia, if I may,
Yeah.
it was about, I believe she did slip on a bridge, and so one of the things that was brought to us is that we need to go and put signs on our bridges, all bridges stating they're slippery when wet, so so we've done that. So our bridges have been covered. I think there's 6 or 8 left, but we've gotten most of them already. We've got the signs at the shop, they're just ready to be installed, so.
The reaction's been different to different communities. Some are closing the trails off completely, other ones are taking different positions, wait and see, and it's,
But couldn't you say the same thing for if I'm walking across the lawn over here that's considered our community park and I trip and fall, but I was going to downtown, then I'd say I wasn't recreating, I was walking, and your park tripped me? Like, that just seems kind of...
I don't disagree with you.
But are we going to shut? But are we shutting down? Are we going to shut down all of our
No.
parks because of this?
No, that's where our city attorney was like, because CIS initially came out and was like, hey, to be safe, everybody should shut down all of their trails, and most cities are like, that's just not realistic. We can't do that, and so we're not, but we're watching it carefully. And like Lance said, if there are areas that we are concerned about, we're working on addressing it.
Okay.
But I think the issue is we don't necessarily want to add more trails to that issue while this is still
limbo.
uncertain at this point in time.
Do you have something? Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead.
I don't necessarily. I think these are good things to look at. My initial thought, though, is that I know that several community members have reached out to Marion County about Wilderness Park in particular, and that being closed. And so one of the reasons that this money was given to us was for this. And so I hesitate to want to spend it on something else, knowing that this is something that we're going to, like, if we don't do this now, it's still going to be something that is going to be something that the community wants to have available. So it's not just going to not go away. We just won't have the funding for it that we have.
And
right
that is
here.
true, in a sense. The challenge is I don't know that we could spend it within the guidelines of what ARPA has designated. or has set out. And there could potentially, if we can over time reach agreements with the district, there could be other funding sources to do things. And if we don't spend the money, really if we don't tell the county soon, she said mid-January, it's past mid-January. If we don't tell the county soon how we're going to spend the money, they might allocate it elsewhere. And I, at this point, don't know that we can say that we will be able to spend the money on Wilderness Park by December 2024, like actually have funds allocated to do that. We might be able to, but I don't know that we can. And I, like I said, there's a lot of other bigger topics that we're having with the district that takes, precedent, the water delivery contract particularly, but also the mixing zone study discussions. Again, it's possible, but I'm not super confident.
Yeah, I would say that without having an agreement, a user agreement with the district right now, that's a no, non sequitur for me. It doesn't even start the conversation. Because look how long we've been waiting to try to get that contract together. It's been how many years now? And what's the last update on that? Where did we leave it when you met with them about reestablishing that?
The water delivery contract?
The contract with Wilderness Park and us and our agreement.
Well, we're kind of where we nowhere. I
Right.
mean, we know the cost to clean it up generally based on some estimates that the county had done. We have a general estimate of what it would cost to maintain it to the expectations that we think that they have. It might be a little bit less, I don't know, but we don't have any nothing definitive on what they would charge us annually to do that. And that's so we really haven't had any more conversations about it, because that's kind of where we stopped.
Right.
Is we know that that's what they want, that there's going to be some cost associated with it. And again, we might, they might come along quickly, but they meet once a month, and we need, that's where we're at.
Gotcha. Councilor Patty.
Thank you. Julia, I'm just curious. You've said things about the county making estimates on maintenance, on cleanup, and things like that. Have we been engaging the Santiam Water Control District with the availability of these ARPA funds for this potential project? Have they been notified that this?
Oh, yeah. The county actually started it, and their intent was that they wanted to try to clean it up, do it, improve it. They actually had more money initially allocated towards it. My understanding is that the district wants, and I might be putting words, and if I am, and if anybody's watching this, I'm so sorry, but that they want an annual payment, and the county and through the ARPA funds could not commit to an annual payment. They wanted to sort of, this is what we're going to give you, this is what it is, and we want it to be opened up. And my understanding is they weren't able to reach an agreement, and that the county said the city's in a better position to negotiate and enter into a long-term contract with the Santiam Water Control District for opening the park up. And I believed that to be true, and I still believe that to be true. It's just time is getting away from us, and I don't know that we're getting there where we need to go in the time frame that we need to get there.
Yep. And I guess I'm sympathetic to that point. But how long has that park been closed at this point? And how long have we been in these discussions with the Santiam Water Control District? And so I guess, if they're not wanting this investment in their resource, okay. But I just want to be sympathetic to, this is where I've heard the demand from our constituents, is Wilderness Park here. Of this list of all these things, that's what people want.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we're not doing that, it is because of this issue. Okay. I just want to be clear on that.
Anybody else?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Giglio. I will, hold on. Go ahead, Councilor Giglio.
Yeah, so, and this is just me just thinking here. Yeah, so basically it's $250. My understanding is that basically it's $250,000 which is, or a little bit more, which for just the cleanup of the park. And then it's $30,000 for the annual maintenance cost. And then on top of that, it would be a annual, whatever the annual lease agreement that they would want on top, which is an unknown amount. One question I would have, and this would be for Julia and maybe for the council, so we meet next week, but they only have their meetings once a month. Is that right?
That's my understanding.
Do you know if it would be possible to get like an estimate from Brent? Right, Brent? Is that right? Just on like what that lease number would be, or just getting a rough estimate, because that would be just my one.
Yeah,
piece of information.
I don't think he has that information. I think they're waiting. He doesn't have that information. I mean, I think they're waiting for a formal proposal from us, which would be likely zero, for that. My understanding in conversations with him is, and again, it's just based on some conversations that he's had with some of the members of the board, is that it is several $1,000s a month that they're looking at, maybe, so I don't know that we're anywhere, I think we're in the area of zero or very little, and they're in the area of something significantly more. But I can try, but it's not from him. It's going to be from his board, and if he's not able to get something in front of his board,
so it would not be like a completely crazy estimate to expect between maintenance costs and the lease that you'd be looking at something close to like 60,000 ballpark. Just I'm trying to think of a number in my brain per year. It does feel like a pretty significant annual commitment from the city.
I mean, I guess another way, even if it's a zero lease, it's still $30,000 a year commitment that we're making, but that's...
And none of that would be ARPA.
Right.
All of the ARPA would be for the cleanup of not our park, of a park we don't own.
Or have an agreement.
For, to then pay $30,000 a year for the maintenance of a park we don't own, and then potentially have, another $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 for an annual agreement with the district that we haven't been able to get to something yet with.
And I will say, again, I'm not, I have hope. I think that it is something that over time, once we reach agreements on the bigger issues, the water deliveries, stormwater, that maybe that's something that can be woven into those agreements, maybe, and then funds could be out, we could get ORPD funds for that, or there could be other sources of funding. I just don't know that we're there right now. So I don't want to give up hope that this is forevermore never going to happen, but I just think the time constraints. I'm seeing Councilor Patty look at me. And
the one benefit it feels like you have right now is just that pot of money to clean it up, right? Which is a certain amount of leverage that wouldn't necessarily be guaranteed down the line, right?
Right.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Patty.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out the next meeting of the Santiam Water Control District will be February 12th.
Thank you.
So,
Councilor Sims.
So so as far as that wilderness park, I think I've heard more people ask me about that park than just about anything. I think the demand from the community actually warrants, even if we have to do pay $1,000 or $2,000 a month to use the park. I just think the demand's there. I think people really want to be able to use that park, but that's just my thought.
I'm going to pause the discussion right here because we did miss public comment. So let's pause the council discussion for a minute and give an opportunity for public comment. So, Aaron, you want to come up?
My name is Aaron Frichtel, live at 12326 Gulf Lane, Southeast Sublimity. Really interested in the park. I think that that's a valid thing, and I've heard as well very interested parties in being able to use that park. I grew up using that park, riding my bike, walking the trail. I don't know if the potential for fixing it up includes like trail maintenance to where you don't have exposed roots or things like that. That was always the case, that there were trip hazards along the pathway. So I don't know if that means that would be also developed or mitigated. But I also am interested in the idea of having the park be behind the library and having something that would lead to the downtown area, as speaking as the president of RDS. And I would love anything that would lead people down to our downtown core. And if it has anything to do with the previous meeting to this, also that we might be able to rip up the street and redevelop some of the core things that need to be replaced down there, that would be fantastic. But one thing I challenged people at a recent meeting a couple months ago was to think of ways to bring people to Stayton. What is it that our identity is? And perhaps something like developing a lighting feature or something like that would be part of that. And I think that would be something of a key marquee that would enable people to see Stayton and stop as they're driving through on a highway. I do have an interest in knowing how we would protect people if they were to lead from there down to the downtown core, if there would be a protected walkway or something, or if there would be a new street light or something like that would protect pedestrians crossing that road, because it does get pretty busy at times. So thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have opportunity for public comment on this topic? Okay, doesn't sound like it. Council, resume if you want.
Mr. Mayor.
Council Giglio.
I would like to just talk a little bit about a couple of these other projects as well. One thought I had on the one that actually excites me the most is the holiday light one. I'm not gonna lie, and the reason that does excite me is because I do think, in the surrounding communities, there's not actually really, I mean, there's the Oregon Garden, but you pay to get into that, and you also have to schedule quite far in advance to do that. What I actually want to see is, my biggest thing with this, and I think I mentioned this to Julia, is that I don't think it's actually enough to get it to like a great light show, right? I think there's a $5,000 investment in lights. I think it's more about the investment in the community park and getting some electricity out there, which is good. I would just like to consider and think about, okay, is this the best place for the light show? Is there maybe a little bit more investment that's needed? Because I actually do think it could be a very standout feature in our community that really does drive tourism and does drive people, especially in those winter months. And so that is just something I wanted to just bring into the conversation as well. Yeah.
Council Orr.
And then did you?
Go ahead.
It's okay. Sorry. Do you have something you wanted to add, or? Okay, sorry.
Council Orr, go ahead.
Mr. Mayor. Okay, two things. One, you can swim in the river down behind the park, Riverfront Park? Yes. You can be in the water?
I think at your
Len
own
says
risk.
yes.
It's North Santiam River. It runs pretty quickly, but
But you can
I
kayak
swam
in
back there
it.
as a kid,
But
just so
yeah, I
you
mean,
know.
you can kayak in it and like I just wasn't aware that you could like get in the water down there.
One of my Parks Board members actually took his, what do you call it, the boards, paddle boards, all the way down to Jefferson, I think. So yeah,
Okay.
he started right there and went all the way down.
Okay.
So you can paddle board, kayak, whatever you want out there.
Is that something we're going to highlight if we put this launch in?
I would
Yes.
imagine we would.
yeah, I mean, both of these projects, I believe, are very tourist livability. You know, we would
Okay.
highlight it to the residents. let people know it's there, it's accessible, and encourage people to come spend the day in Stayton and enjoy it as well.
Okay. And then I do have another second part to that. Because if I'm being completely honest, I haven't been down there for a while because of the some of the unsavory people hanging out down there, and I didn't feel comfortable being by myself or with my kids. And so I would just want to make sure that if we're spending money down there to do all these things, that we're actually going to make sure that it's a safe place for where our community does feel safe going down there and continuing to go down there. That's one of the, yeah.
And I think Lance can speak to this too, but I think that's part of the clearing out brush, having a better line of sight, having a better parking lot, having gates that close the parking lot off so that people don't stay there overnight. Lance,
Yeah,
anything
we
to add?
started this last fall, Counselor. We actually cleared that area quite a bit. Not as much as I would like to because we have limited funds, but my plan is to clear it out a lot more, get rid of any kind of hazard trees down there, open it up so we can get some actual sun in there, so we can grade it, get some growth in there, so families can walk down to the river and play in the river without any kind of issues with transients or whomever. The other thing I want is I want to be able to drive by that on First Avenue and be able to look at the river from the road so you can see whatever's going on. Any tents, anything up, we can see it from there. And so we open it up, people can see it, people will be able to use it. And as Julia just mentioned, we'd put a gate up. Our thought is to put a gate up right at First so we can close that parking lot off at dusk where people can't go in. They would have to come out, but they can't go in.
That was a discussion I had with Julia. I was adamant about that. My previous history, that's what I had to do, make sure that those gates were closed at a certain hour at night so we didn't have that element overnight. So, and I do recognize the changes that you guys have made so far for visibility. The vegetation has definitely been reduced to what it was really overgrown. You couldn't walk. So
Absolutely.
I see the vision. I see what you guys are going forward towards it. So I agree with you, and I agree with you what your concerns are. And I think from a long-term perspective, if at some point the property to the west of the bridge came open, we'd have to think about how that correlates and connects that all together. So
That's one of the Parks Board's goals, is because it's on the Oregon Gem Society's book, that beach on the west side of the bridge, that is a place to go get gems and opals and things. It's shown in the book, but we don't promote it because you can't get to it. And so that's something, a long-term goal for our Parks Board, is to open that up, build a trail over there so they can get over there and experience that beach in the summertime when the water's low, and people can go enjoy it.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, on that, in that respect, I would love to see maybe some, like, with our, I can't remember what he's called, but just some more, maybe some marketing towards that.
Community engagement coordinator.
Community engagement on, like, maybe pictures and, like, the revamping and just kind of when those things happen. Because there is some stigma to that area for people.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilor Giulio.
Yeah, so I just want to get some clarity, and I think you did say it, but I just kind of want you to restate it. So there would be almost like a beach situation where people can go down to the water.
What I'm saying is there's already one west side of the bridge.
Okay.
We don't have a path to get over there yet, but that is in the Parks Board's long-term goals. But our first step is to get the area south of the water treatment plant cleared out, where you can see the river from the gravel road as you walk in. You can see the entire river. Get some sun in there, get some of the hazard trees gone so people can feel safe walking to the river from the path on a nice even ground where they can get down there and actually enjoy the river. I mean, it's a huge asset to our community, and unless you walk out to Riverfront Park, you're not using it. And even that really probably needs to be cleaned up, but we have a conservation easement that we have to pay particular attention to. But that isn't in the conservation easement, and we can go in there and clean it up and make it very family friendly. And then we'll have a parking lot right there, so people can park right there and walk out, and we could set picnic tables right along the river, and a lot of good things could happen with that. And
That's
that
great.
would bring people in, yeah.
So you can go right down to the river, and the idea would be that, you know, you could play in the river a little bit with
Oh,
the
yeah.
families and that kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And then so you mentioned the one on the other side. So is that city-owned property on the other side of the river, or is that
Well,
something we have to purchase?
It's not anybody's property because it's part of the ordinary high water of the river.
Okay,
So
gotcha.
people
Yeah.
can walk over there and use it, and they do in the summertime.
That's great. That's fantastic. Yeah, I do want to. I do want to say, like, I think that if I think about one of the more underutilized assets in our community, it does feel like the river is a big one in terms of like tourism and the ability to. I mean, it's right there. And then I think about even as that launch point for a lot of like tubing and stuff in the summer. I mean, there's so often like, where do you start to go down to Jefferson? And I think it's actually a great launch site for promoting that as seeing it as a great place to just go and go to Jefferson and have a long tube ride or paddleboard or kayak or something like that. So I think there is a lot of potential for that. So yeah.
Okay. Anybody else? So Julie, you're expecting action on this tonight?
I was thinking about that as you guys were talking. I didn't set it up for you to actually make a formal motion, but I think that would certainly be helpful. And I guess, and if you're not wanting to make a motion, at the very least, give me some strong direction on, are those two projects, do you feel comfortable with those? And the funding amounts that we've laid out. I heard from Councilor Giglio maybe some different funding amounts. So I'd like to, I think a motion would be ideal.
And
But that,
as far as the deadline, we're pressed for a deadline for the county. I
Yeah.
mean, essentially, they should have known last week.
Yeah.
Okay, so what would the council like to do?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor McDonald?
I'll go ahead and, listening to all this and listening, I like the ideas for the improvements to the community center. I know we talked about this lights idea, and I think this is an awesome start. You know, it lays the foundation for kind of what I'm imagining in my head could potentially be. I think maybe down the road, we're going to have, you know, budget coming up here before we know it. So we can definitely think about that and maybe as an addendum or as an item in the budget to go further and decide what we really want it to look like. But I think, you know, putting a little money into that and getting the panel and everything started so we can get that off the ground is a great idea. So I'm perfectly fine with following these recommendations as they are listed here, and I would move to do such.
Okay, so that's a motion?
I'll second.
Well, hold on.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Were you forming that in a frame of, in a
Yeah,
motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'll move to follow staff recommendations and cost estimates here for the allocation of the $250,000 from County ARPA.
I'll second now.
Okay. So what I'm hearing you say is you're making a motion to improve Riverfront Park and the improvements to the community center together.
Correct.
And there was a second to that. Okay, further discussion?
Mr. Mayor?
Councilor Sims?
I had one question. So if we were to spend more on the community center park, I know we have a discretionary fund for the city council. Is that something we could use that money on? There's like $40,000 in there we haven't used.
well, I'm going to be coming to you guys, I think at the next meeting to discuss that neighborhood improvement grant. So it's not really a discretionary fund, but it's a neighborhood improvement grant fund. You certainly, that could be something that you choose to spend some funds from that as improving the neighborhood. So that could be something that you discuss. Other than what you've already budgeted, you would have to do, you know, like, so that's budgeted. So $40,000 is budgeted.
Correct.
With the intent of a neighborhood improvement grant fund. So.
Because, I mean, if we wanted to add more to it, that'd give us a little bit of a slush fund for it.
Okay, anybody else?
Mr. Mayor?
Councilor Ort?
I'm kind of tracking with what Councilor Sims is saying, because I would agree with Councilor Giglio that I can just see the comments on the Stayton Community Connection page after we do our light show that all these people work so hard on, all the staff and Public Works and everything. And I don't want it to be just good. I want it to be great. Like, I want the comments to be like, that was fantastic, great job, and not like, I mean, you're gonna have there's always gonna be one, but I would love it to, like, I would love to be able to, like, put on a good show. If we're gonna put in the effort, like, and we do have that money that we allocated for the neighborhood improvements, I would be willing to talk about moving some over to.
So, and what I could suggest is let's move forward with this and get the
Yes.
ball rolling, and then Jana, I think, can kind of think things through, run some numbers, and just know that she's not limited by $5,000 per se, and let's kind of see where it goes from there, rather than moving money around.
I'm not saying moving it around
'Cause-
now. I'm just saying the intention, my intention for this is to make it shine. If you can roll with $5,000, then by all means.
This is a good place for us to get started, okay? This is a good start. We actually had a really good start this year already with no money, right? And giant extension cords, okay? Because I think Jordan knows that I have a really deep desire to not be lame, and we're not going to do it where it's going to be lame, okay? So I'm going, Julia's like, came to talk to me about this and was like, hey, we're kind of thinking about this, and I'm like, oh, I'm already heading towards zoo lights, like this is where I'm going, right? But this is a good place to get started. And this is, we love the idea of like the other project getting funded too, and both projects going together. I think that's a great opportunity for this money.
Awesome. Councilor Patty.
Thank you. First off, I'm going to compliment Lance and Jana for articulating these projects. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you for the work that went into this, and thank you for all the other staff that assisted you in presenting this to us. I will say, yes, I will vote in support for these, but to be honest with you, I want to vote for the Wilderness Park. I want an agreement to work for that, and I'm really disappointed that we couldn't find something. You know what I mean? Ultimately, I'm really happy that we have money to spend on these things, but I just want to voice my support that if we could, I would be doing that. And it's really disappointing that we couldn't find some way of making that work.
Agreed. Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilor Giglio.
Yeah, I just want to add that I do feel that way as well. I think that Wilderness Park, if we could have gotten an agreement together in time, I think I still would be voting for that over these two, because of just the community feedback that we've received. However, given the current situation and given the fact that I think we have two kind of great, tourist and livability projects on the table, I'm definitely comfortable moving forward with them. One thing I also want to highlight is I do love that one of them I think is going to be a great summer attraction and one's going to be a great winter attraction. So I really like that how I think they also complement each other in that way.
Yep. Okay. All right. With that, I'm going to call for the question. All those in favor of motion made to use the ARPA funds for the improvement at Riverfront Park South and the improvements to the community center behind the library, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Motion carries 5-0. Julia should be good there. That leads us to the next item on general business, which removed resolution number 1086, and we'll call up Lance on that one. That would be the authorizing stormwater master plan update.
All right, thank you, council. Before you is the issue of the stormwater master plan. This was on the consent agenda, so I've got to admit I wasn't fully prepared to bring it forward to you, but I am hoping that you read the packet, and so you know what it's about. And it's should the council approve resolution 1086 to award a consultant contract for the stormwater master plan update to Keller Associates and for the amount of $414,578. In your packets, you had the request for proposals, the actual proposal from Keller Associates, and resolution 1086. There's some background information. I won't spend a lot of time doing that. You've already had it. The last master plan was done in 2009, so we're really far behind. The growth rate that was assumed in that master plan was 3.35% for the city of Stayton. At that time, they weren't using Portland State population growth indexes at that time. They were just using what was available to them, which was the actual growth rate in Stayton at that time. I think Julia probably could tell you this too. I was a consultant at that time. The growth rate in the early 2000s was huge anywhere in the state of Oregon, even here in Stayton. So 3.35% sounds like a lot today, but that period of time doesn't sound that bad. But now we know, using the Portland State population growth rates, it's more like 0.8%, 0.9%, somewhere in there. And so we need to update this stormwater master plan using the correct population growth rates, so we know what infrastructure we need to improve upon in the next 20 years. That's the purpose of this. I know there's been some concerns, and I'll just start with this. I know there was concerns about the price, and it's very concerning to myself. One of the things I put in this master plan RFP, which they didn't do before, was I have a line item in there for the consultant to install 10 piezometers throughout the city. And the reason you need those piezometers in the ground for a period of time is to establish where the groundwater is. You can't really go out and do a master plan, stormwater master plan, and start projecting places to put regional detention facilities unless you know what the groundwater is in those locations. That is what happened on the last one. We have one shown right behind the community center. Well, you could go out there with a shovel and dig down one scoop and you're hitting groundwater. So there are areas of town you cannot put regional detention facilities, and we need to know where those are before we put and project where we're going to put detention facilities. We all know our hands are tied when it comes to our design standards. We have to follow the City of Portland's design standards. We cannot allow any more stormwater into the Salem ditch or the Power Canal or any of the Santiam Water Control District facilities than's already going there. So we have to detain water. The only way you can detain water here is with surface infrastructure. And you can't have groundwater within 4 or 5 feet of the surface, or you're not building a surface facility there, okay? So that's why we added the piezometers into this RFP. It's $115,000 or $20,000. If you remove that, you'd be down around $300,000. That's more in line where our master plan was for the wastewater treatment plant and the transportation plan. So all in all, with the cost of living and the cost of indexes, our consumer, not the consumer, but the construction cost index over the last 5 years, that's about right. It moves in line right around $300,000 if we want to remove the piezometers. I would recommend against it, so we can figure out where to put regional detention facilities. One of the other reasons I put it in there is because one of the things I've always heard since I've been here, and I don't agree with, but I've heard it, is that we're not developer friendly. And it couldn't be farther from the truth. The problem is that we have to abide by certain standards that for a town of 1 million, or a city of 1 million people, and we're a city of 8,000. And our hands are tied. We have to do it. So, by doing that, any kind of development that comes in, we've got to require them to detain stormwater. In order for a subdivision to detain stormwater, they got to go set a piezometer and perhaps wait 8 to 10 months to determine what the groundwater is during the wintertime so they can design a facility that we can accept. One of the other reasons that I wanted to put 10 in is so we could establish where groundwater is in certain areas in our community so we wouldn't have to put developers through that. And that in a nutshell is where the RFP came from. We got one proposal back from Keller and Associates. It is in the amount as shown. I've got a staff of 6 folks that reviewed their proposals, much like I've always done with the master plan proposals. They rated fairly well. We've worked with them in the past, so currently staff is recommending that we move forward with this contract. with the caveat, we'll be watching the money. And if council wants to bring up the piezometers, wants to remove those, we can discuss that at a later date. And they realize that I can remove that at any time. So with that, I'll take any questions that you have.
Mr. Mayor?
Counselor Sims.
So, thanks, Lance. That was a good job because you answered almost all my questions that I had written down. But is there a mandate to update the stormwater master plan? I mean, I know it's 2009, but it's very
Generally
old.
speaking, Julia was getting ready to jump on it. That's the community development director, Andrew. Yes, it's a 20-year capital improvement plan, but they recommended that you replace them every 10 years. Ours was in 2000, well, they started in 2006. By the time they finished and it was adopted, it was 2009, but most of the data is from 2006 and 7. So as you can see, that's 18 years.
And I'll add, I mean, when I first started here, I was, stormwater is one of the biggest issues that is affecting economic development in the community. And finding out that the master plan was as old as it was and as potentially flawed as it was in terms of growth rates and growth assumptions. And in my understanding with some of the concerns initially raised by the water control district to our master plan that led to our MOU that got us in the position we're in is because of that growth rate. And so if we can update our master plan and have a better, more realistic understanding of what water runoff is going into their irrigation canals, that just gives us way better and more information to potentially have renegotiations or just be better, better stewards of our infrastructure, knowing more what we need to do and being more informative for developers.
I can't tell you, when I first started here, we'd have AMG meetings between the district and the city. We'd have them once a quarter. We'd swap back and forth, but it seemed like just about every meeting I'd go to, it was myself and Jennifer Nagel and the former city manager, and just about everyone I'd go, they'd ask me, why aren't we building detention facilities in these different locations, Pioneer Park, behind the community center? Well, one, it was money because it costs a lot of money, but two, it's because we didn't know where the groundwater's at. I mean, the longer I'm here, the more work that's done, the more development that's done. I'm seeing groundwater in places that I would never thought had been. And so we need to establish what that is before we go and start building detention facilities. And so when we put our next master plan out there, that we feel very good about the information that's in it and the data that's in it, and we can hang our hats on it.
Yeah, I know that was a concern of Brent's, was the detention facilities. The only other question I had was, is it in this year's budget already, or is this something we have to put in the next fiscal year?
I budgeted $350,000 for it. We're not even going to start until after it gets approved by council. So it'll be a 2-year stage. So I would say I will probably, if you go forward with it, we'll probably only spend about $125,000 to $140,000 this year, and the remainder will be budgeted for the following year.
Mr. Mayor.
Counselor Patty.
Thank you. So Julia and Lance, I thought I heard both of you kind of talk about this a little bit. I want to clarify something. Do we have to, as the city, renegotiate with the Santiam Water Control District to change our development code in terms of stormwater detention? Is that something that we have to do at this point?
No.
No, we do not.
Well, we don't want to get sued. Is that kind of what the...
Yeah.
Not even that. I might not be answering your question. I feel like this, with the information, it could be an opportunity for us to renegotiate. There's no obligation to renegotiate. They're still concerned, frankly, about our runoff, and I think this will help us answer those questions a little bit better and have a better response to them when they raise those concerns. Lance?
I will agree with that. What I will say, and I'll reiterate what Julia just said, is they are still very concerned with our runoff. I have been working with Brent and our collections person for the last 2 months during the rain events, adjusting the flow manhole out on Shaft Road so we divert more flow into our regional facility. and taking less off the Salem ditch because he's very concerned about it flooding the field. So we're doing some in the field adjustments and monitoring to try to reduce that, but they're still very concerned about it. I get contact from him all the time regarding farmers' fields flooding, and so whatever we can do to help ourselves. Also, we have a grant that's coming up that I'm working on right now to design a regional facility out in the industrial area. These are one of the things that need to come. We got to figure out whether or not we can put it out there and how big it is. And the only one way we're going to find out is to do the work. You got to do the work, and that's really where it boils down to.
Thank you for answering the question. I just, in terms of this, it seems like this is such a given because of the MOU back in 2014 that we're stuck with this. And for me, I'm trying to understand, are we stuck with it, and why, and what does that look like? And so kind of what I'm hearing is we do have the ability to change it, the code, but we don't want to, and this will help us at some point maybe renegotiate terms that are amicable for all parties concerned. Is that kind of what I'm getting at?
Well, I think it opens up the potential for sure. I don't think if you read the memo of understanding that we really have a whole lot of say in that, because they recommended it. It's in the memo of understanding. And both parties signed the memo of understanding, realizing that this is what we'd have to live with. I think there are outs in there or negotiation, but I don't recall them off the top of my head, Counselor. But this is a good first start. We get this done, we figure out where we put regional facilities, we figure out what facilities we really need based on our true growth rate, and that's a first step, and that opens the door for the next step, whatever that might be. Maybe it's negotiating that, allowing for more stormwater into their ditches if we do certain things. But we need to know what that is. Again, we have to do the work before we can even enter that, take that next step.
Thanks, Lance.
Mr. Mayor.
Council Ort.
Lance, does this come out of the, this comes out of the stormwater fund?
This will come out of the stormwater fund, which will be transferred from the stormwater SDCs. This is SDC approval. We can use it for that.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? What does council want to do?
Mr. Mayor's Councilor Patty.
Go ahead.
I move that we approve resolution number 1086 authorizing stormwater master plan update.
I'll second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to approve resolution number 1086 authorizing stormwater master plan update. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lance. Leads us to communication from city staff. Julia?
Yeah, I've got a few things. One, in your weekly update, I included this little City of Stayton year in review flyer thing. If you want another copy, I've got it. Many thanks to Melanie, who got us on Canva and put this together. I had the idea and she made it a reality, so that was really cool. And then we're actually working on putting this out into the utility bill for February, so people can get it that way. And then Christian will be working on kind of on a weekly basis, kind of highlighting one of these slides and kind of giving a little bit more focus on those. So I just wanted to see if you had any comments or questions about anything on here before we go formal public with that. Let me know. So did you guys have a chance to look at it? Yes. I'm not seeing resounding nods. I'm going to pass it around just in case anybody's feeling embarrassed to say that they haven't seen it. And then if you have any, gosh darn it, I think I just unplugged you all. Now I just plugged you all back in. If you have any questions or comments, let me know kind of quickly if you could. Also, at the end of December, I sent you a memo that just followed up on a topic that was raised under citizen comments or public comments at a prior council meeting on marijuana retail facility hours. And I just wanted to make sure you read it and don't have any questions. And I guess just see my thought is that I responded to the question and just wanting to know if you want to have any further conversation on it or if this was sufficient. So it's more of a question than an update. Okay, hearing no.
That's up to council. Councilor Sims?
I remember reading through it a while back. I think it's been a bit since I looked through that, but I think the motion, or it was looking to extend the hours, correct?
Yeah, the request was to look into extending hours, and council asked to get a little bit more history on why the hours were set the way they were, and so the memo was sort of outlining this is why, this is what, and then we had a table that showed what neighboring jurisdictions do and what their hours are. Many prohibit them. Actually, I'm sorry. I have a copy of that as well. I'm not going to unplug you this time. Just to refresh your memory. So a lot of jurisdictions just prohibit it, and then it shows the jurisdictions that don't prohibit it that are nearby and their hours, and so that's the gist of responding to the question that council had at the time.
So are you asking if you want to make this a future agenda item? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, I guess I'm asking if that was sufficient or if you want to discuss it further.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Hort?
I believe I was the one that asked for a little bit more information on this. And after thinking about it further, I just don't really see the need. We have a lot of very pressing budgetary issues happening right now, and I just don't really see the need for us to bring up this topic after conversations that felt like it would just be in order to increase it by an hour, some people might want to increase it, but there might be more people that don't even want marijuana dispensaries in the town, and so I just don't think this is a topic that I personally want to approach right now.
Councilor Sims?
I don't think we need to talk about it either. I think there's enough the hours are long enough to provide people the opportunity to go there.
Okay.
And not talking about it further now doesn't mean you can't talk about it
Correct.
further in the future if it comes up. I just wanted to confirm that was resolved to your satisfaction. So last of my announcements, I actually would like Jennifer to come up because she wants to give you an update on the Arts Commission.
Okay, now it's on. Yeah, so I've been reading about revitalizing downtown and the idea of bringing arts, be it sculptures, to parks or into the downtown area. And I was thinking, well, we need to get some people interested in arts. And then I found out that in 2021 there was a public arts commission. So I thought, wouldn't it be great to get it reinvigorated? So there were 5 people appointed to the Arts Commission, and I've reached out to some of them. One person actually passed away, but 2 of them, their terms have already come up last December. And so I'm just here to say that I'm going to try to reinvigorate it and get it back on track. I'm sure it was because of, COVID and people not feeling comfortable meeting in person. The plan was to have them meet once a quarter. And but I'm probably going to be coming here asking for some more appointments. 2 of the 5 people would like, one of them, their term ended, but they're still interested. But there'll be 3 open slots. So if you think of anybody that you'd like to nominate, let me know, and we'll see. That's it.
I have a question. Is there an age restriction?
No age restriction, but you must be a resident of the city.
Gotcha.
We did have some people that were business owners but didn't live in the city.
Gotcha. I'd like to see some younger folks on there if we could.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Real quick, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
I was just curious if our community engagement coordinators help promoting this body and the vacancies on it.
I don't see
Not
a reason
yet.
why. Yeah.
Yeah, but we'll utilize him to do that,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think we're going to need a wide net on this one. Just a
Probably.
thought.
So this committee was formed before I started and didn't exist when I was here. So any questions, comments, concerns to give forth to Jennifer as she embarks on reinvigorating this, or?
Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
If I remember right, kind of the concept behind this is that none of us are really artists, or, we're not sure if we have good taste or anything. So our thought was, in designing this, is these folks would have more of a sense of that kind of thing, and it would be sort of a neutral body to go ahead and make judgments on that kind of thing around town, and what would be worth displaying and what wouldn't be worth displaying. Correct me if I'm wrong. Like, I think Councilor Ort was on when we formed this up, and that was sort of my takeaway, unless there was more that we were trying to accomplish with that, and you were on too. Yeah. Okay.
I don't recall anything other than that. I'm definitely might be the least artistic person in the city, so I certainly would leave input and preference to others. Yeah.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Ort.
I believe it was, part of it too was just trying to set standards of what art could be displayed out on public property or in a kind of a bigger setting. In that respect, I'd love to see more information be put out for I don't know, business owners, or if you recall, there was a story a couple years ago back in Salem where someone painted the side of their building. I believe it was like with a big American flag. And there was a big uproar about it because they didn't get permission to do it. And it was big enough that it fit the guidelines of you have to get this artwork approved. And so while I don't want to get into like drama per se, but if we have those standards, people need to know about them. And so we're all kind of abiding by the same guidelines, I guess.
Sure. I believe that this would be mostly, it's a public arts commission, so it wouldn't, I don't think it would impinge on somebody's own private displays. It would be more what you would allow in parks or on the sidewalk or something like that.
If we could get some clarification
Sure.
on what Lance is coming, what that looks like though, because I think that there are some rules or regulations on that, if I'm not mistaken.
If I may, Counselor, I just want to kind of give a little bit of background on this. The person who really started this was Judy Mahoney. She's the one that passed away. Mm-hmm. And she came into my office one day and she wanted to paint little murals on the sidewalks to direct people downtown. When it rained, they would illuminate. And we didn't have any kind of standards at the time, so we really didn't know what to do. And so the city administration at that time, we got together with Judy and her husband, and we started talking about this, creating this committee is what we're talking about. And that committee would work with city staff, and it was Dan Fleischman at the time, to develop standards. And it'd be much like any other committee. They would meet and they would come up with ideas, and those ideas would be brought to the city council for their adoption, or their representative, and their representative would come. But that's how it kind of evolved. It was a small grassroots, and Judy was part of RDS at the time, and they were looking for ways to bring people downtown. So that's how it was crafted. The standards, I'm not even sure, have they been created yet completely? Yeah, and so that was one of the things they were going to be tasked with the standards, developing those standards, bringing them to council, much like a code, and having you folks approve them. Anyway, that's my 2 cents. I wanted to give you a little background on that.
Yeah, and I'll add, I mean, obviously lots of work to do. They were established but never met, never
Yeah.
developed any bylaws or guidelines or anything like that. So Jennifer will have a lot of work to do. That's all I've got.
Okay, thanks, Julia. Thanks, everybody. That leads us to communication from the mayor and the council. And I think I'm going to start off tonight by recognizing the contributions by 2 community members. And I want to start off by recognizing the passing of Mr. Porter, my predecessor. As everyone knows, Hank served as mayor of Stayton for 7 different terms. He was involved in Stayton politics and Stayton City Council for 43 years. Outside of being a high school teacher, track coach, business owner, et cetera, et cetera. So it was a heavy heart that we found out that he passed away shortly after Christmas, and I want to recognize him for his contribution that he gave to the community. Made a place for a better place for all of us to live here, and yeah, I'll leave it at that. So thanks for leading the way for us and giving us an opportunity to continue on your well. So, absolutely, yep. He was instrumental in the dog park, and it bears his name today. So that was his legacy. I think he'd be happy to know that that was one of the things he left us to enjoy. So I appreciate everything he's done for us, and I appreciate him being a mentor for me. And we'll leave it at that. The other person I want to recognize is Kim Dwyer. And as everyone might know by now, of the heroic efforts that she took in my mind to recognize the need in this community and take action to make sure people didn't freeze to death. So, was she the undertaking she put herself in, and the leadership that she showed, was it last weekend now, right? Last weekend, to make sure that everyone had a warm place to go when the temperatures were so cold outside, basically saved lives. I got to be honest with you. I didn't think that that level of commitment could be handled by one individual, and what she pulled off was nothing short of a miracle to my mind. And I got to tell you, everybody on this council that participated in that and gave their time and effort, you guys are fantastic. All the people that contributed to her helping Kim do her mission was amazing. So the police department helped. It was great having those guys go out, bring people back in that needed help, give directions. All the local businesses, fellow council people, Julia, Melanie and her family. I mean, everybody that I can think of. I can't name everybody that was there, but it was definitely a community effort, and I can guarantee you that, I don't know how she pulled it off, but it was fantastic. And so she was there, a lot of us were there from Friday at 7 until Wednesday at noon. So really amazing to see the community step forward and support those efforts and make sure people didn't freeze. So I gotta give her props for that, major props. Okay, with that, anybody else, council?
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead, Council Ward.
I just wanted to thank Councilor Patty for his service as our council president last year.
Yes.
He did a great job.
I just want to say thanks again for that, and I appreciate you pointing me a couple of years to that. That was an interesting challenge. And Councilor Sims, I know you're going to do great with it.
Anybody else?
Mr. Mayor,
No, Council Giulio.
I feel like those words are a really hard acts to follow, but I'm not going to be thanking anyone. No, so my thing is I wanted to kind of publicly just talk about something and kind of and maybe just have a chance, because I did talk to you about this earlier today, and I just kind of wanted to have kind of a to just bring it kind of in a public setting, that we can just kind of talk about this a little bit. We don't need to get into the details, but I want to just kind of like set a little bit of like the timer and the expectation kind of with council. So we talked about today, and I think what we've communicated up until this point is some type of involvement in how we select roads, right? What roads are done, and how we go about that. And so we know we have the PCI that we use as the grading and as a tool that really helps direct that, but we really also want to be a part of that process. And so we talked a little bit to Julia about that, and so I want to give you just a little bit of an intro, kind of what your idea is over the next couple months, what that looks like. And then maybe have a chance for us to ask questions, and maybe ask Lance questions, or if there's anything.
Sure.
Yeah.
So we actually just had another meeting this morning with staff talking about really the streets, the street rates. That's kind of the conversation. We know that we have punted the street rate a little bit because we knew that we had to have these conversations with the community and the public, and so we were meeting again to strategize and talk about that. And really our plan is education, starting with what is PCI, what is street, what is a bad street, what is an okay street, what does it take to maintain those, what does Stayton have, and then having some conversations about trade-offs and choices of, if we had a $10 million bond, for example, we could spend it on 4 streets doing this, or we could spend it on 15 streets doing that, and trying to get some feedback from the public on choices. The plan is that we will work on the education component soon. We still need to work on getting it together, but soon, and then we will be presenting to council kind of the choices, the options that we want to kind of share with the public. I think we need to work with the consultant to see if she's available, but we're hoping like April-ish to come to council, probably in a work session or maybe a business meeting, to kind of share, this is where we're at, this is what we're thinking about doing from an education and an outreach standpoint, getting your input, and then doing that. So I don't know if that was what you wanted me to say. Or?
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good start, and I kind of want to just see if there might be more opportunity just for council to weigh in a little bit. Is one thing that I really just do want to communicate, and I don't know if we're on the same page from council, but what's very important to me is that by the time we get to budget, it's not the first time we've seen those roads, and we know what roads we're choosing to fix, and what the pros and cons and what different options might be for that road budget and for that street budget. I know Councilor Ort has expressed many times that we would like to not be bound. We don't want to be bound 100% to the PCI. So if it's 70%, 30%, or something like that, 70-30, but we want some flexibility in being able to select streets that might cost more, but are just in dire need of that type of assistance. And I want to give us some runway to be able to have that conversation in the lead up to budget, so we're not forced to make those decisions at budget, because then it's kind of a do or die situation, and then you don't really have a choice. I'll say this: if we don't have that conversation before, I'll be a no on every road. Like, there will be no, I will say no to all of it if we don't have those conversations in the lead up to it, because we've been talking about this for last year. We want a conversation, we want a robust conversation At least I do. I can only speak for myself, and I think I can probably speak for Councilor Orr just from what she's expressed in the past. But I just kind of want maybe a little just your feedback or where you guys are at in terms of your temperature and being included in that conversation.
Well, I'll start. I share your frustration, number one, and I share your desire to label what streets we would like to see fixed. And I shared that with Julia and Lance, I think shortly after Christmas again, where I said 6th Street from Marion to Washington is one of my big goals right now. I'd like to see that. And from a standpoint of why, well, number one, it's necessary. It's absolutely necessary. But two, the bigger issue for me is its transparency in how the funding's being utilized. But it also gives a tangible result for us to say, here's an example of, instead of the same discussion. I think there's a lot of esoteric pieces of the PCI. People don't understand what that is, and so we have to do a better job educating. But at the same time, we should, as a council, be able to designate some of the streets you would like to see improved, and that's my 2 cents.
This might be helpful. Julia, as far as our our website, is there anywhere that a constituent could go and see a list of roads and priorities and why and that kind of thing?
I do not believe so at this moment.
Okay. Well, my thought is if we go about having some sort of forward-facing document or matrix as to what we're doing and why, we would get more public buy-in on this, especially if we're talking about street fees.
Yeah, and that's part that's part of the plan. Is we need people to understand what we're doing and why. We need people to understand the trade-offs, what the costs are, and then what people are willing to pay for. And that all needs to have a discussion. I will say we are going to strive to do as much as we can before the budget has to be prepared and as the budget is being presented. Just know it is a work in progress, and we will need to refine, and as we get more input, there might be changes over time, but we're working on trying to get more awareness and transparency. It has taken longer than I had hoped, in part because initially we're waiting for our community engagement coordinator to come on board, and then we had other things going on, and now we're sitting down and really tackling this, and we need to do it, and it is critical.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Sims.
Something that worked really well, and in my 30 years with the federal government, I always had to have a priority list of spending projects, my top priority, but I would like to see maybe a top 10 road list. And that way, we have an idea, we have, some choices. And also, if we got it early enough, we could also send it out to community and see some type of survey. The community engagement coordinator could say, hey, what roads should we fix? We have this much money, we can do this many roads. What are your top 4 roads? I mean, that would get a lot of buy-in in the community, I think, too.
And I think we're working on something like that. I mean, we do have a priority list. It's based on the PCI, and it's based on the classification of the road and what economically you could do, within the money. The question, and I think this is what Councilor Giglio and I were talking about today, is that's based on a certain concept, and council can say, I don't care about what's most economical. I want to do one road that is going to be the most visually impactful, and that's a policy decision you guys can make. And our job as staff is to present you and the community with information to help you make the best choice. And so we need to get you what we have in terms of the priorities and then the trade-offs, and then get input from the council and the community on that. I don't know that I would necessarily want to say which one road, because then it's just sort of whoever votes the most. But I think it's more policy level? What trade-offs and policy decisions do you want guiding those decisions, and then bringing it out to the community to share, what we're doing, why we're doing it. So there's that transparency.
Councilor Orr.
Mr. Mayor, I'm excited that we're having this conversation because this is where I've wanted to get for quite a while, and so thank you for making some traction on this. I would agree with Councilor Giglio that I understand the reason for the street ratings and everything. Those are all it's just all, I don't know, numbers, data. It doesn't take into effect community livability. And so I would love to see, Giglio mentioned, a balance between, okay, yes, we can stretch our dollars so much further if we do all of this, but we should probably take care of, this road over here that is going to need more attention, and do less roads in certain years, and not every year, but so I would like to see something like that, where, because the plan that was presented to us previously, it never addressed any of our worst roads, no matter how much money we threw at it, and that so I just want to see a more balanced approach.
So we're working on getting the educational component together. We'll update you. I'll plan on updating you at our next meeting too, just to let you know where we're at, what we've done. We decided that we're going to start meeting every 2 weeks to kind of make sure that we're staying on top of the discussion and the conversation. So I'll make sure that we're giving you an update under my staff announcements, and that we continue the conversation. I think this is a great conversation. There will need to be information in and information out as we go forward and start preparing the public-facing piece of things.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilor Giglio.
Yeah, I just want to end, not end, I'm not the last word, but I just wanted to add this. I just wanted to agree with what Councilor Ort said, and what you said, is you alluded to this as well, Julia, but it's that there is more to consider, right? There really is a lot more to consider than just the state of the pavement, and that's really what I think we're trying to underline, is to say there are other values that are less quantitative, right? They're less quantitative, that are more qualitative, that are more, how does this affect livability? How does this affect economic development? And how does really this reflect ultimately the will of the voters? Which is, I really believe, a huge consideration and a big consideration as we're making the decisions. So I just want to underline that. It's not that I don't think the quantitative numbers about pavement condition are not an important factor, but I don't think they can be the only factor, and I think that we really want to have a balanced approach to this. So, yeah, I just agree with that.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilor McDonald.
Yeah, I would just kind of echo some of the other councilor statements. I think it's definitely true that those people, the people that live, like the mayor's example of 6th Street, are highly impacted by the condition of that street. I've gone down that street, and I tell you right now, if I was going again, I'd go home and get my pickup truck that's got more ground clearance, because that road is terrible, and I can't imagine for those people that live on that road how much that actually affects their daily lives. So my street, I live on Douglas between Locust and Washington, and even though my street would grade fairly poorly, I can guarantee you that almost everybody that lives on that street would probably say it's fine. There's no big problem here, even though the PCI system might prioritize my street. So I agreed. I think we need to kind of look at that and maybe not necessarily disregard what we're doing currently, but maybe add an additional variable, add other factors in that go into those decisions.
Agreed. Anybody else? Okay, with that, thanks for all your input today. We're adjourned.